Well, hello, that's me again. Today is May 19th. It is Sunday. It is the end of the weekend for many people. And I want to start with a simple thing. Before we proceed to discuss what happened to the president of Iran, Raisi, we know that there was what they call the hard landing of his helicopter in Azerbaijan. So I'm pretty sure that we have to wait until we know all information. And as you might expect, the immediate reaction of many people in the blogosphere and on videos and everywhere is that, okay, we first have Mr. Fico of Slovakia and then now Mr. Raisi of Iran. Could it be the coincidence? Could it be otherwise? Also possible, we don't know. There are all kinds of the desperation moves and panic on the part of the combined West, and they are absolutely hysterical. And as always, what they do, they begin to, well, how to put it, trash talk. This is what they really good at, trash talk. And we will start with well, how to put it politely, this thing. This is a Wall Street Journal, and Wall Street Journal says that Ukraine asks for U.S. help in striking targets inside Russia. Biden administration has restricted Kyiv from using U.S.-made weapons in Russian territory. Complete BS. It's absolute BS, and so, but there is a very symptomatic, the fact that this comes out, because obviously they are beginning to cover their tracks. As you can see yourself, they say that Ukraine has asked the Biden administration to help identify targets in Russia for Kyiv to strike using its own weapons. It has also asked the US to lift restriction on the use of American-provided weapons against military objectives inside Russia, US and defense officials said. Well, it's obviously, first, both it's covering tracks and it's lying through the teeth, because United States provides 24/7 real-time ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and whatever the Ukraine does with this targeting, well, that could be one issue to be discussed separately. But the fact is that there is some panic also which is related to Kharkov offensive, and well, how to put it politely, because we have the situation with Kharkov offensive, and by the way, there are other places where the assault continues and actually intensifies. Russians are now bombarding very intensely the New York. Yeah, not New York from the state of New York, but New York, in Ukraine. So those people being, just a low life, slaves basically to this whole idea of the Western dominance and alleged, whatever they imagine about the West, they renamed the place, New York. So New York is going to fall pretty soon. But we have the situation of this thrash talk, because what is happening now, as Mr. Curtin of British Heritage Party correctly stated a few days ago, I believe it was on the 16th, 3 days ago, that he talks about, which is absolutely correctly, Russia is now advancing quickly over eastern Ukraine. The globalist and Western governments and the mainstream media that backed the Zelensky regime are increasingly deranged at the news. Yes, they are. And here comes the sad part. I didn't want to touch the guy. And people say, oh, when you express the contempt, you're doing this extremely well. No, it's not about contempt. Many people do not understand when I say something about their IQ being less than room temperature or people having no qualifications. It's not because I want to humiliate them. Nobody can humiliate more American military political top than themselves. I merely point out to the fact of what is going on in the heads of those people, how they are brainwashed, and why they basically ran the United States, not to speak about Europe, into the ground. And I mean, they ran it into the ground militarily, economically, culturally, socially, what have you. And because of the situation with the Kharkov offensive, which is, how to put it politely, probably gonna end a little bit the reign of terror of the precisely those Ukrainian guys who get their targeting from the United States, of shooting at their civilian apartment blocks in Belgorod, district, region, if you wish, and the same goes for Kursk, is because obviously the buffer zone is extending towards Kharkov. And as Mr. Putin stated, well, I'm sorry to say this, but everybody who has any degree of the integrity and understanding among us, and us, I mean, not only me, many other people, Larry Johnson, Scott Ritter, we've been talking about that this is primarily about the buffer zone being moved further. And guess what? Mr. Putin a few days ago stated the same thing. There's no interest to take Kharkov. And people, ask me in discussion boards, for example, how many troops will it take to take Kharkov? I don't know. I don't have ISR, real ISR, not this BS which is spread by the propaganda, including NASA, for example, posting the fake photos. No, I'm talking about the actual data, and in terms of how the defense is organized within Kharkov, even if to imagine, which is not gonna happen, Russian general staff deciding that somehow they need to assault Kharkov and, liberate it, whatever that means, in terms of the, inflamed imagination of many fanboys. The problem is Russians are not going to take Kharkov militarily for now, because that will mean not only there are larger casualties numbers, but it will mean a horrendous losses among the civilian population of Kharkov. No matter how many there, 404 Ukrainian nationalists are there, many of them are still civilians. They have wives, they have old people, they have children. Anybody who ever thought about it, that they should think about it. Because before the attacking or taking Kharkov, you will need to have, I don't know, just look at the basically roads, look at the perimeter of the city and its suburbs, see how many people you need to establish the block posts, how many people you need to have the humanitarian corridors, because Russian army is not going to attack city before taking out all or most of its civilian population out of it. And we know that civilian population in Kharkov will be held hostage by all those Nazi scum, the beloved people in the US State Department, CIA, and all those people, So, yeah, this is how it works. Then after that, you begin to see how much you have to have in terms of reducing the city. And how many, for example, what is called Nariad Seal, required force of the high precision smart munitions you need to suppress the, firing positions and things of this nature. So you're probably looking at least 150 to 100,000 people. So why would Russia do this now when she can wait it out and have the basically Kharkov fall like the ripe fruit into hands? I don't know, but people ask this question, so I respond to it. Now, here comes this issue. Mr. Cavoli, the Supreme Commander of the U.S. troops in Europe, and he talks about a big Russia, the offensive, and said that he's the head of U.S. European Command, and NATO Supreme Allied Commander speaks to Atlantic Council. Atlantic Council is a combination of the nincompoops, bunch of those people who really have no clue what they're talking about, so they invite Mr. Cavoli. And guess what? Mr. Cavoli suddenly says that, here what he says. It was 2 days ago, and as Mr. Curtin warned you, they becoming unhinged, and the only thing they can do is the, trash talk. So he is talking about that warns of big Russia problem for years to come. Let me put it this way. I will explain why Mr. Cavoli has no clue what he is talking about, but still. Army General Christopher Cavoli, head of European Command and Supreme Allied Commander Europe, warned that Russia would remain an enduring threat to NATO and global security regardless of the outcome of the war in Ukraine. Okay, I don't know what is why he uses this qualification fire, but about the outcome, but we know the outcome. And so he talks. No matter how it works out after the war in Ukraine is concluded, I believe Russia will pose a long-term threat to the alliance. We will have a big Russia problem for years to come, Cavoli said at Atlantic Council on May 17. While Russia has deployed refurbished and older model weapons that are not as high quality during the conflict, Cavoli noted that Kremlin rapid reconstruction of military might in quantity as cause for concern. Well, obviously he is beginning to trash talk because, well, it's actually NATO and American weapons which are garbage and trash, and they do not measure up to Russian weapons. But yeah, he needs to control the butt hurt, and he needs to what to trash talk. So Pentagon estimates suggest Russia has suffered about 315,000 casualties. Well, Pentagon is the combination of the amateurs, actually, military, and so their estimates are, well, let me put it this way, they are not exactly correct, to put it mildly. And so he said that Russia will be on track to expand the size of its military. It has already announced its plans to do so, said Cavoli. It has ramped up its industrial production and manpower intake in order to achieve these goals. It will be arrayed in the western parts of Russia and associated nations, perhaps on the border with NATO, and it will be a large force. Yes, it will be the large force, and if the United States won't extend NATO, for example, to Sweden and Finland, nothing like would have happened. But I mean, yeah, Mr. Cavoli continues to, do what he evidently does, best of all, just trying to, trash talk. And here he also speaks to Politico, and here he is. Top NATO commander, Russia offensive won't succeed. Sure, of course not. General Christopher Cavoli said Russia lacks the skill and capability to take advantage of any breakthrough. Well, that is really funny to listen from the general who never won anything and nothing more than the whiteboard guy with the police action skill in Afghanistan. But here it is, Cavoli continues to speak, about things. I know the Russians don't have the numbers necessary to do a strategic breakthrough. I don't know what Mr. Cavoli means by the strategic breakthrough. The guy evidently grew up in the, evidently having the, the Hollywood school of the military art from the word, from the movie Patton and all those Top Gun movies. Evidently, if he thinks that strategic breakthrough has to be necessarily those large red arrows. But this, I will explain to you deficiencies of the Pentagon generals now. Christopher Cavoli told reporters after a meeting at the Alliance Defense Chiefs at NATO headquarters in Brussels. And look at this. They don't have the skill and the capability to do it, to operate at the scale necessary to exploit any breakthrough to strategic advantage, said the U.S. general, but added they do not have ability to make they do have ability to make local advances, and they have done some of that. Cavoli assessment comes from very close contact with our Ukrainian colleagues, and I'm confident that they will hold the line, he added. Okay, who are his colleagues in this case? Well, let me put it this way. And if you want to destroy the remnants of the U.S. armed forces, their reputation, here are his colleagues. The meeting was followed by a meeting of the Ukraine NATO Council with the Chief of Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, Major General Anatoly Barkhilevich. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that they're gonna learn a lot from those Ukrainians, and obviously Mr. Cavoli has to at some point of time explain how Russians who do not have skills manage to kill their actually annihilate completely 4 armies of the Ukraine, together with the tens of thousands of all kinds of their, what it's called, mercenaries and advisors, and just demonstrated how pathetic their actually NATO equipment is. And but yeah, that's what is left for them to expose themselves as deranged and trash talk. And of course, in terms of breakthrough, I have news for Mr. Cavoli. United States Army didn't win a war in ages. And fact is, it was humiliated in Vietnam, it was humiliated in Iraq, and it was humiliated in Afghanistan. Yet this guy has audacity with his background, by the way. And let me show you something. I didn't want to go there, but well, I guess time for review Mr. Cavoli's curriculum vitae. Look at him, he's brave general, he jumped, with the parachutes and things of this nature. And he is a general in the United States Army, but guess what? Born to an Italian-American family, officer during the Cold War in Würzburg, West Germany, Cavoli grew up in Rome. He graduated from Princeton University with, in biology. In 1987, as part of his undergraduate degree, Cavoli completed a 22-page senior thesis titled The Effects of Earthworms on Vertical Distribution of Slime Molds in the Soil. If that hasn't been enough, he obviously enrolled into the ROTC, which is Reserve Officer Training Course, and there is a lot to be said about American ROTC and how many really incompetent people it prepares. And obviously he also went to Yale, where he got his degree in Russian studies. Well, as I am on record for a long time now, and I cannot emphasize this enough, there are no Russian scholars in the United States, period. I mean, there are none, including those Russian immigrants who teach in Yale, for example, where the Mr. Snyder actually teaches people like Cavoli. And Mr. Snyder thinks that Ukrainian civilization preceded there are actually those, Sumerian civilizations. So what do you expect from these people? They are just absolute fanatics and morons. They have all those degrees and any PhD, well, as H.R. Mencken stated, you have the morons with the PhDs. These are people are utterly unqualified. They are not qualified even to mow the lawn in front of my house. Yet here it is. And Mr. Cavoli has no knowledge of Russia, as does not most of those people who operate on the top military political top in the United States, let alone in Western Europe. So, and if that hasn't been enough, my gosh, we have the Cavoli, the situation, which is really pathetic, honestly. We have the other guy. Here's another dude. His name is Richard Haas, of course, and guess what? He comes up again with some, they are desperate, obviously, and they need to redefine everything what is happening in such a way that to somehow preserve already a long time ago lost prestige and the remnants of the integrity and honor in the United States on the international arena. And so he comes up with yet another garbage, which is called defining success in Ukraine. And these people are wet dreaming. Some people say that Haas is the real kind of deal and the puppet master behind Biden administration. Oh, you know what? Who cares? Russians do not care. They don't care who is the president. I mean, they have nobody to talk to, let alone with such people as Haas. And he talks about that some answers that success should be defined as Ukraine recovering of all its lost territory to reestablish it. 1991 borders. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan has expressed the view that 2025 could be the time for Ukraine to once again mount a counteroffensive against Russian troops. Well, Jake Sullivan is political scientist. He would know how to command a squad, let alone platoon of the combined arms. In a combined arms unit or formation. So, and he doesn't understand, obviously, what required force is. It requires a lot of calculations. It certainly requires more qualifications than merely writing the, this thesis, undergraduate thesis on the earthworms. But here it is. Here's the guy who suggests I guess they can still, draft women and children, which is coming to this in Ukraine. So, but then again, as I already stated, these people are completely unhinged, but yes, they sense danger and they are in panic. So that means while most of them are psychopaths, they do sense the danger. They are cowards by definition. And so this would be a serious mistake, writes Mr. Haas. Don't get me wrong, reestablishing rightful legal borders would be highly desirable, demonstrating that aggression is not acceptable, but foreign policy must be doable as well as desirable, and Ukraine simply is not in the position to liberate Crimea and its eastern regions through military force. Well, here Haas is correct, but the whole, vector of his article is somehow to move the goalpost. And so Mr. Haas, who doesn't have any background in math, however, he talks about math, that the math is unavoidable. Russia has too many soldiers and wartime economy capable of producing large amounts of arms and ammunition. Despite sanctions, Russia has been able to ramp up its military-industrial base and has access to weaponry and ammunition produced in Iran and North Korea and to Chinese manufacturing goods and technologies that contribute to Kremlin's war effort. While Mr. Haas obviously continues to spread rumors about too much relying on some Iranian technology. But you know what? I've been so many times over it that you cannot explain the average American statesman that they are stupid, because we have Dunning-Kruger effect. You cannot explain to moron that he's moron because he's moron. Most of those people are morons, and they have zero useful academic backgrounds. So, and he's talking about another factor militating against a Ukraine effort to recapture its lands by force is that offensive operations tend to require much more in the way of manpower, equipment, and ammunition than do defensive efforts. This is especially so when defenses have had chance to build fortifications. The likely result of Ukraine returning to the offensive would be a massive loss of soldiers. And what strategy then should Ukraine and its supporters pursue? First, Ukraine should emphasize the defensive and approach that would allow it to husband its limited resources and frustrate Russia. Second, Ukraine should be given the means, the long-range strike capabilities, and the freedom to attack Russian forces anywhere in Ukraine, as well as Russian warships, blah, 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 blah. So I think for Ukraine to win anything, you need to take the old Pentagon stuff and get them into the basic military academy, which teaches them real military history and real military art together with tactics, because these guys, they live in the wet dreams. They still masturbate to this, whatever it is, beating the crap out of the third-rate, incompetent army, and they still think that this is achievement. It never was. It's not a yardstick. It's nothing, zero. It has absolutely no real input in the theory of the military art, but yet they continue to go around saying, oh, I've been to Gulf War, well, and just, sure, yeah. I can go out, find the kid in City Park in the sandbox who is 5 or 6 years old and beat the crap out of him. That makes me the freaking criminal. But there will be very little for me to be proud of. Yet these guys still go around because that's the only thing they have. That's the only thing they study. They don't know the history of the World War II. They have no clue what was happening. They don't understand how Russians fight. They don't understand what strategy is because they are not taught strategy. What passes under the academic, so to speak, a course of strategy, as I already stated, is the confabulated representation of the military history written by people who actually lost all their wars in Russia. And guess what? They have the butt hurt. They cannot admit that, guys, you are not in the same league. Live with that. This is the way it is. And yeah, but of course they can continue to deploy F-35 fighters. I'm pretty sure this will impress people. So, and this brings us, apart from the, this Mr. Cavoli's 22 pages, how to put it politely, diploma, thesis, whatever, the undergraduate thesis on the tape, whatever, earth, worms, what have you. Let me demonstrate to you why Russia is done with this, all this garbage. Russia announced 3 days ago the exclusion of the concept of bachelors from higher education. period. There will be no Bologna system. Even the titles are being removed, and guess what? There will be only higher education and higher specialized education. For example, higher specialized education, it will amount to 6 academic years. This is what I have because my title, the same as all my classmates, is the specialist. And guess what? We spent 6 academic years studying military art, studying tactics, theory of operations, and engineering parts. For example, not to be kind of overly critical, Russians did have one person who didn't have initial military education. That was the chief of the general staff, Anatoly Kvashnin, general. But there was a funny thing about him. He had the engineering degree from the university in transportation, automobile transports and things of this nature. Guess what? He went through what is called military department. He went to serve as the engineer initially, and eventually he ended up graduating for 3 years in the military academy of the armored forces, named after Voroshilov. This is some equivalent, much more profound, much more extensive academically of the U.S. Army War College. So 3 years. After that, he went into the Academy of General Staff. That's the only person who ever was there, well, with relatively civilian background. So, but to demonstrate to you what, for example, a thesis on the specialist looks like in Russia, which of course now basically refuse to use those things. Here it is. Let me demonstrate to you. Scroll through production of low rigidity body parts, development of the technological process for manufacturing the heat exchanger housing of a Kamaz vehicle. And here it is. This is the diploma project for the specialist. Well, guess what? It is, as you can see yourself, I just, show you some parts of it. And if you ask me what it is, it's a lot of mathematics and engineering science. And of course, it's 180 pages, guys. My thesis was on the anti-submarine warfare. And I believe it was at that time around 80 or 75 pages. But what was the most terrifying thing, because there was a mistake in the computer center in my Naval Academy, it was, of course, the calculation of the effectiveness and probabilities of detection, or depending on the type of the searches, all kinds of the theory of search. That was 150 meters, the printout. I'm not kidding you. All my actually, we did it because we unrolled the whole thing in what is called the study building number 1, which is huge, and throughout the corridor, from one end to another end. And yeah, after that, when I dropped that thing to my basically commission, which was granting the degree and graduating me as an officer, they said, "Oh, just remove it, move it away." So. Yeah, but this is how the real thesis, are written. 22 pages for about earthworms. I don't think so, with all my due respect to, whatever is left of the military professionalism in the U.S. Army. This is not the kind of the background you want to go into the real military. So what's left? Yeah, butt hurt and trash talking. Now, if that hasn't been enough, we have now this news that, well, Russia actually shot down 100 drones, but just in Belgorod alone and Krasnodar, and my classmates told me about it. They live in that area, so that there were 57 UAVs in Krasnodar region shut down, and 3 of them in Belgorod region, and altogether over Russia 100. So air defense works fine. So, and then in conclusion, what can I say? Here is the situation in which many people are afraid in West, but you know what? They wanted it, they got it. Financial Times writes now that Russia court seizes assets worth of 700 million euros from Unicredit, Deutsche Bank, and Commerzbank. Well, what do you expect? United States is on its way out, I mean geopolitically, but it still tries to do the if I go down, everybody else goes down. Well, obviously Russia and China are not going down. They have actually the booming economies, and Russian military is the, well, if Mr. Cavoli wants to talk to me or anybody from Pentagon, I would gladly accommodate them. They will not. They do not want to pretend that they know anything about what is going on around them, because their top is absolutely ignorant, and when it is not ignorant, they lose any honor and integrity and begin to trash talk. That's the only thing they can do. In terms of military contribution to the military art, I don't think so. Mostly primarily all kind of technological contraption and absolutely drunk, absolutely ridiculous technological concepts, which brought the United States Armed Forces to the point which I am on record, and you can quote me, they lost the arms race. Operationally, we saw everything we needed to know during the counter-offensive. This is the level of operation planning in Pentagon, let alone in some chihuahuas like London and France. So, and this is what I wanted to tell you today, guys. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please buy me a coffee or two and support me on the Patreon. I would really appreciate this. And that will be it for today, guys. And have a nice rest of the weekend. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.